Hello guys. So let's start the current affair discussion for today. So the first article is about Ministry of Health and Family Welfare launching a tele mental health assistance and networking across state, which is in abbreviation is called Tele-Manas initiative. Manas here means mental health. So what is mental health? Is a state of mental well-being that enables people to cope with stresses of life, realize their abilities, learn well, and work well, and contribute to their community. The steps taken for mental health is a National Mental Health Program, Kiran Helpline, Mental Health Care Act 2017, Manodarpan Initiative, which was launched during Corona. Now, let's get back to the main article, but before that, remember, mental health has been described by WHO as a prerequisite to describe an individual as healthy. Second, in your optionals or GS4 or somewhere or other, you must have read about Maslow's hierarchy. This Maslow's hierarchy is nothing but about how people can become able to actualize their potential, which he calls self-actualization. Even there, we have this particular mental health as a component. So remember these two important facts regarding to mental health. Now let's come back to our main article. So Telemanas, launched by Ministry of Health and Family Welfare, it aims to provide 24/7 telemental health services across country, particularly catering to people in remote or underserved areas. Launched on World Mental Health Day, it's 5th of October. Then it includes a network of 23 telemental health centers of excellence. So there would be centers of excellence for telemental health. How many? 23. Nodal center would be in Bangalore, National Institute of Mental Health and Neuroscience. IIT Bangalore and National Health Systems Resource Center will provide technical support. Government aims to open at least one telemanas cell in each state UT. A national telemental health program was first announced in Union Budget 2022-23 while acknowledging mental health crisis due to COVID-19 pandemic. Additionally, Lancet releases report on ending stigmas and discrimination in mental health. What are the key findings? So we see there is a stigma as well as discrimination which have a negative impact on 90% of people living with mental health conditions, which leads to them reducing their social contact with people, leading to sometimes suicide, right? And there is a inside or introvert tendency increasing across people. So in order to battle it, there needs to be social programs, there needs to be decriminalizing suicide, then there need to be a reforms in mental health policies. So we saw one such a reform when Mental Health Care Act 2017 was passed, where it led to mental health or mental illness as a disease on which insurance can be claimed. So remember, insurance can be claimed if a person is suffering from a mental illness. This was one of the reform that we saw in 2017 Mental Health Care Act. So we need such much more reforms so as to destigmatize the whole mental health phenomena and reduce the discrimination as well as stereotypes related to it.
Bro,
So,
like this discrimination and stigma, as far as I know, in our society we have that exorcism, right?
correct.
One thing. Other than that, what all the other mental health issues, what to say, that stigmas. First one is like that ghost absorption, like that, something like that, and during the religious festival people
Hmm.
used to behave differently, and they tell that what to say, God has what to say, entered into this human body,
Hmm.
and God is giving this and this. So these all are things that is like known to be multi-personality disorder in mental health wise.
Correct.
So what all are like other mental stigmas? As far as I know, I just only know these two things.
Okay. So what you just actually added to this article was about the social phenomena. On a patient level, when we talk about generally it is schizophrenia. So schizophrenia is a state which leads to people being deluded. There would be delusions, there can be hallucinations, there can be multiple number of things. Now, because our country is religious, we always had this thing that there would be a religious tool or cultural tool. Uh, Let me correct it. There's a cultural tool to combat this particular issue. However, the cultural tool itself led to what we can say a great what um, stereotype related to it, that if a person is accessing this cultural tool, he is okay, but if he is going in medicinal path or what we can say as um this allopathy, then he is not curing himself but is pushing himself in a vicious cycle of atheism or something like that, due to which due to majorly which people are not able to express their symptoms correctly, and ultimately leading to this vicious cycle of religion where we see some bad practices happening. Coming back to the point, we have schizophrenia. Then we also have Down syndrome. Down syndrome is a special case where children are born with one less, uh, what we say, chromosome. But because rural areas does not have the awareness related Down syndrome, the babies generally born due to such syndrome, they would be treating them as slow learners and will be pushing them through a cycle of punishments. Sometimes it leads to harassment, right? Such things that they are not able to understand that the child is suffering from Down syndrome. It is a biological condition, and it needs special care. So we have multiple number of mental illness that needs to be combated, but at the same time, it sort of you know um, clashes with the allopathic method or this therapeutic methods, right? So cultural tool versus therapeutic tools is one of the concerns in Indian society, right? Um, I
Yeah,
was
I got it. Yeah, I got it. We can move on to the next one.
okay. Now, the second article is about OECD releasing crypto asset reporting framework. So OECD, why? Because OECD in previous years have launched some other initiatives that are tax inspectors without borders, right? Um, so in short, like G20, OECD is also sort of focusing on bringing a new dynamic governance when it comes to economy. So in line with this, they have now launched a crypto asset reporting framework, CARF. So it provides for reporting of tax information on transactions in crypto assets. It is to intend to combat international tax evasion using digital assets, that is cryptocurrency. In 2021, the industry had a market capitalization of $715 billion, and by 2022, it touched $3 trillion before plummeting this year. Now, in fact, they have actually lost a huge value, and maybe they must be now under $200 billion, right? So this is the present state of crypto industry. Now, about the framework, it covers exchanges, brokers, and ATM operators that facilitate exchanges between relevant crypto assets. It is in line with common reporting standard of OECD. This common reporting standard is nothing but about using various currencies to exchange or buy assets in other country. So let's say I have Indian rupee. I want to purchase something in dollars, iPhone. People generally go to America to purchase iPhone, right? So this particular conversion of rupee to dollar, and then the additional measures that need to be taken while a product is being purchased in dollars, such thing come under this common reporting standard of OECD. So CARF is in line with this standard. Under CARF, there's due diligence procedures requiring the identification of both individual and entity customers and controlling persons to identify themselves. It also sets reporting requirements for crypto asset firms in countries in which they operate. The exchanges between fiat currencies and relevant crypto assets, as well as crypto transfers, including retail payments, will be required to be reported. Right. So this framework becomes very important because RBI plans to launch a central cryptocurrency. About CRS, so it was published by OECD in 2014, ensure transparency of cross-border financial investment and fights offshore tax evasion. Digital currencies issued by central banks were included in CRS rather than CARF. About cryptocurrency, so it is a digital decentralized medium of exchange encrypted using cryptography. Industry estimates suggest that there are 15 million to 20 million crypto investors in India with total crypto holdings of around 40,000 crore. However, no official data is available on size of Indian crypto market. India has repeatedly backed a global framework for regulating cryptocurrency. So this was all about the new crypto asset reporting framework. Now, moving on, new island has emerged out of Pacific Ocean. So according to NASA's Earth Observatory, new island has formed in South Pacific after an underwater volcano near Tonga home reef erupted, oozing lava and expelling steam and water above surface. Home reef is part of Tonga climatic subduction zone with three tectonic plates smashing into each other and creating an active area for undersea volcanoes. Earlier submarine volcanoes flared up in 52, 57, 1984 and 2006, producing new islands each time. About islands created by underwater volcanic activity, so process of formation, it originates from passive lava flows on seafloor. These passive flows harden into rock and build up the height of the underwater mountain over millions of years. Eventually, some volcanoes reach height above seafloor where low pressure allows for explosive eruptions. Submarine volcanoes that do not reach sea levels are called seamounts. According to NASA, islands created by underwater volcanic activity can exist for years, though they typically don't last long. Volcanic island ecosystem. Because they evolve in an isolated environment, many organisms are considered endemic species. So remember about this volcanic activity because it highly resembles with coral reef development too. So what happens is there are underwater eruptions and which leads to formation of such seamounts. Over the years, what happens is that these seamounts, they start to come out of water. And then there's another eruption which leads to development of particular island. Such islands also have this particular tendency to be, a fresh place where there can be breeding of new species. And generally, atoll is one of the form of such islands, and coral reef atoll forms are also formed through this particular volcanic activity. Right? So we have seamounts, then we have new islands, and not necessarily every island is formed as atoll, but atolls generally do develop through such volcanic activities, especially in South Pacific Ocean. So this was all about the new island emerging out of Pacific Ocean. Moving on, we have RBI guidelines on international trade settlement in Indian rupees yet to be implemented. So mechanism was introduced by Reserve Bank of India in July 2022. Yet only two Indian banks, UCO Bank and Yes Bank, have opened special Vostro accounts to facilitate the process. So UCO Bank, recently it opened a Vostro account for Russia's oil exchange, right? Vostro account is an essential part of correspondent banking in which a foreign bank acts as an agent providing financial services on behalf of a domestic bank. So UCO Bank is serving as an agent providing financial services on behalf of two domestic Russian banks. New mechanism will help India promote its exports, buy discounted crude oil from Russia, and will also help stabilize rupee. About guidelines, so aim is to promote growth of global trade with emphasis on exports from India and support increasing interest of global trading community in Indian rupees. Export and imports under invoicing arrangement may be denominated and invoiced in rupee, while exchange rate between currencies of two trading partner countries may be market determined. Remember, the invoicing, that is the bill generation, they would be arranged and denominated in rupees, but that will not be impacting the exchange rate. Exchange rate still would be market determined. Export and imports under invoicing arrangement may be denominated invoiced in rupee, while they repeated the same point. Then they can now use a special Vostro account linked to correspondent bank of partner country for receipts and payments denominated in rupees subject to FEMA Act 1999. Also, bank guarantee, setting of export receivables, advance against exports, use of surplus balance, approval process, documentation, etc. related aspects would be covered under FEMA rules. So they have here given a very simple diagrammatic representation of how this trade settlement mechanism would be working. So there is a INR Vostro bank account, a bank account opened by foreign bank in India. When you withdraw INR, it would be converted to, let's say, dollars. The money would be withdrawn by foreign exporters. He would be supplying goods and services to Indian importer, and the money would be paid in INR. On the other hand, there would be some INR deposited. The money would be withdrawn by an Indian exporter. Goods and services would be provided to foreign importer. The foreign importer would be paying the money to the bank. The bank would be converting this particular money to INR and will be depositing the same INR. So here we have how the cycle would be working for foreign importers as well as foreign exporters. I hope this is clear. Okay. Next, we are having Nobel Prize for Economic Science 2022 announced. So let's say a question comes in PSC or something like that. The Nobel Prize for Economic Sciences is not exactly economic prize. Nobel Prize. It is actually a prize given in memory of Alfred Nobel, because it was somewhat associated with Alfred Nobel. Slowly, it was called as Nobel Prize for Economic Sciences. Now, what happened? So, three people, Ben Bernanke, Douglas Diamond, and Philip Dybvig, they won this prize collectively on research on banks and financial crisis. So, the 2006 global crisis or the upcoming recession feared by experts, on such banks have played a crucial role, which also include the 1930s Great Depression, 1933 to be exact, Great Depressions, right? So the analysis on such phenomena and the importance of banks in such financial crisis, this has been awarded the Economic Sciences Nobel Prize. As per Bernanke, bank failures were cause of financial crisis, and bank runs was key reason for Great Depression of 1930. Bank run, what it is? So it is when depositors becomes worried about bank survival and rush to withdraw their savings. Earlier, it was believed that bank failures were consequence of financial crisis. Here, he is depicting that instead, because there was a feeling of financial crisis, people rush to the bank to take out their savings, which leads to bank failures, which leads to financial crisis. The financial crisis is not necessarily the prerequisite for bank failures. As a solution, Diamond and Dybvig stated that deposit insurance provisions, where a certain amount of one's deposit in a bank are insured, is a critical tool towards building trust and preventing bank runs. So we have a depositor insurance guarantee scheme or corporation, which is headed by Vice Director of RBI, right? And we also have some provisions for insuring money through your Basel norms, right? So in a world without banks, it would be impossible to make long-term investment. Conflicts between needs of savers and investors would arise. Savers want instant access to their money, which is most commonly called need for liquidity. Higher the liquidity, easily the money could be accessed from the bank. While borrowers, they need money for much longer time. So that's why when you are paying online, let's say you have to pay a bill of 700 rupees to your telecom or broadband, right? They would be generating a link. You will be, let's say, accessing the UPI method, and you will be using Paytm. You go on Paytm and you then click on pay the money. You enter your password. The Paytm says that you have paid the 700 rupees, and then this particular site or your broadband receipt generator, it shows that yes, you have paid the money. What actually happens is, here you have your broadband service. It asks for 700 rupees to Paytm. Paytm then asks you to give it 700 rupees from your account. When the 700 rupees is transacted to Paytm, the money which you gave to Paytm, it does not go to the broadband service holder. The money that 700 is going to this particular service provider is Paytm's own money. Your 700 rupees is actually held by Paytm itself. That is why you see that these digital wallets need some sort of capital before they become digital wallet, because there would be their own money they would be using to pay such services, and your money that they have got from you, they would be investing in other sectors, let's say investment, or in markets, or they can be purchasing some IPOs in order to gain profits, to gain high profits through such available tools. This is also called as money multiplier. So the number of hands increases, the value of this money increases. So here we have essentially 1400 rupees as a money multiplier. That is there. This is 2x in a short. So 2x into 700, which is 1400. So you have actually introduced 1400 rupees in the ecosystem while only paying 700 rupees. Moving back, banks are able to resolve this conflict through maturity transformations. This is a process whereby bank acts as an intermediary, and it transforms assets with long maturity into bank accounts with short maturity. So this was all about the Nobel Prize on Economic Sciences. In prelim section, we have collegium system. So recently there was a recommendation by collegium and CGI, but two judges were not present, Chandachud and Nasir, His Holiness Nasir and His Holiness Chandrachud. So because these two judges were not present in the meeting that held in the collegium, the recommendations were taken down, right? And now new recommendations would be made after DY Chandrachud becomes the new CGI or your 50th CGI. So moving on, Supreme Court put out in public domain the details of a failed collegium meeting. It is a system where a committee of CGI, 4 senior judges of Supreme Court, and 3 members of a High Court, in case of appointments in High Courts, take decision related to appointments and transfer of judges in Supreme Court and High Courts. 3 judges case that have come from 1981 to 1998 sets collegium system for appointing judges, effectively ruling out your 99 constitutional amendment on NAGC, National Appointment for Judges. Then we have National Mineral Exploration Trust or NMET. So it was constituted under Section 9C of Mines and Mineral Development Regulation Amendment Act 2015, a non-profit autonomous body, objective to use fund accrued for purposes of regional and detailed exploration with special emphasis to strategic and critical minerals. In short, you have good example could be coal mine. So what happens in coal mine, that they would be mining from surface. They won't be going deep, right, where the actual good coal lies. Instead, their focus is to first carve out the surface coal, then they would be waiting when, to be exact, degradation of land happens, and because degradation of land, the land becomes more loose, and then they would be accessing the second layer. So instead of creating a good vertical chamber through which they can access the different layers of coal and take out the minerals, they only first act harshly on the surface, waiting for second layer to appear and then acting on it as second layer becomes the new surface. So this particular NMET, it is against such practices. The holder of mining lease or prospecting license cum mining lease shall pay to trust a sum equivalent to 2% of royalty paid in terms of second schedule of MMDR Act. Also remember, minor minerals come under state while major minerals come under central. Moving on, we have automatic exchange of information. So India has received fourth set of Swiss bank account details of its national organization as part of an AEOI. So it is a systematic and periodic collection and transmission of bulk taxpayer information by source country to residence country of taxpayer without later having to make a request for same. Exchange of information is permitted under provisions of DTAA, that is Double Taxation Avoidance Agreements, unless specifically prohibited, and Multilateral Convention MAC. Then we have RBI regulating use of credit ratings. So it has stated that banks can no longer lend based on existing credit ratings assigned to loans where name of lending institution is not disclosed. Absence of such information often results in bank applying derived risk weights for unrated exposures. Regulation refers to external credit assessment institution that provide ratings to debt. Bank use the ratings assigned to debt to calculate risk weightage. Then they use existing rating to determine extent of capital set aside. In case of violation, lending institute will need to set aside more capital as RBI has prescribed a higher risk weightage for credit ratings. Moving on, we have reverse auction. So Centre is considering scrapping reverse auction procedure for bidding on wind and solar projects. What are RA? So they are competitive bidding systems. Sellers compete to supply buyers with a specific good or service, enabling buyers to locate the most competitive sellers. Unlike standard auction in which multiple buyers compete to buy goods from a single seller, there are multiple sellers competing to sell goods to a single buyer. The effect is that the seller bids price goes down and down and down, while in standard auction, buyers bid prices goes up and up. But because of this, the existing institutions only they are able to provide the services and are causing a great distress to new emerging startups, which collectively comes in MSMEs. Moving on, we have Business 20. So DPIT hosted conference on B20 Indonesia Global Dialogue in partnership with CII. Formed in 2010, official G20 Dialogue Forum with global business community, aims to deliver concrete actionable policy recommendation on the priorities by each rotating presidency to spur economic growth and development. Moving on, mandatory registration of foreign food factory. So FSI has made mandatory for foreign food manufacturing facilities to register with it for exporting products, falling under five food categories. The categories are milk and milk products, meat and meat products, egg powder, infant food, and nutraceuticals. This will be effective from February 1, 2023. Now, FSI, it is an autonomous body under Ministry of Health and Family Welfare and established through Food Safety and Standards Act 2006, so making it a statutory body. Then we have a bulk drug park and twin city development. So Prime Minister lays foundation stone for multiple projects, including bulk drug park, twin city development. What is a bulk drug park? So it is a contiguous area of land with common infrastructure facilities for exclusive manufacturing of active pharmaceutical ingredients or API. Right. So India currently has to import a lot of API, and if BDPs are success, this would lower the manufacturing cost of bulk drugs and increase competitiveness in domestic bulk drug industry. On the other hand, twin city development. So it involves transforming existing cities and developing new genre of satellite themed township, which are safe, efficient, clean, and green, and offer high quality of life. This satellite township, what does it mean? So there is a center or there is a city which is highly urbanized, let's say Delhi. Now, what happens is that ministry, they would survey the nearby areas. These areas aren't villages, first of all. They are good towns or cities. In these cities, towns, they would be locating the potential of shifting the urbanized or the over urbanized population. So for example, for Delhi, one of the satellite town is Gwalior. So ministries and the governments, they would be trying to push the excessive urbanized population from Delhi to Gwalior. But people won't go just because government is saying that. And hence these townships have to be developed in such a way that they are safe, efficient, clean and green, and also offer high quality of life. And hence the satellite towns becomes a viable option in order to decrease the urbanization which is rapidly happening in urban cities. They are in close proximity and are interdependent on economic function and urban infrastructure needs. Moving on, we have doom loop. So according to economists, Europe is headed for doom loop. It is a circle of vulnerability where a country's banking system can be severely hurt by volatility in the price of sovereign bonds. They hold for reserves, resulting in contraction in lending provided by the banks. A phenomena where a shock to one part of its economic system is amplified by its effect on another. So what is this doom loop? You have external environment. There's a war, there was COVID, and still COVID is somehow impacting. So government finance comes under pressure. Value of government bonds will fall because now there is no guarantee that the government would be able to fulfill their promise on their securities. Due to which banks suffer loss because banks are the major holders of such securities. Because they suffer, the bank curtail lending to firms and households. This leads to a decrease in liquidity. Or here we could say for a few moments there would be decreasing inflation. This leads to economic activity slowing. Because the economic activity is slowing, the taxes or revenue it decreases, which leads to government revenue falling. Here we will see a phenomena where inflation is increasing, but unemployment is also increasing, which is called the stagflation. Stagflation is not a desirable form of inflation. Because government's revenue is falling, they would be raising the taxes. The taxes are raised, supply chain is again hit, and supply pull inflation increases, making the commodities much more expensive. Now, because economic activity is slowing and the firms does not have the credit to invest, there is no investments by such firms. Because there is no investment by firms in other such sectors or their expansion, borrowing is needed less. Because now they don't need more money. The banks which were holding the money, their money is just lying there, impacted by inflation. So let's say they had 100 rupees, but here we have increasing inflation of 10%. So effectively this money becomes 90 rupees because firms, due to slower economic growth, are not needing any borrowings. Because banks suffer loss, what they will do? They would be intending to buy more and more government bonds, right? But these government bonds are already coming under pressure due to external environment which they are not able to control, and this particular cycle repeats. Also, when government revenue falls, the confidence in such economic securities also decreases, which also leads to further value of government bonds being fake. And even if external environment does not impact, the domestic, what we said, threshold point is when bank holds a large amount of sovereign debt. So let's say US has a lot of debt, but what they did, they issued the securities and gave it to banks. So even that is a trigger point for such doom loop to occur. And when the external environment acts, the doom loop is bound to happen, and hence the Europe is on verge of a doom loop. Finally, we have Collective Security Treaty Organization, CSTO. So Kyrgyzstan has cancelled Indestructible Brotherhood 2022 military exercises for Moscow-led CSTO, which was to be held in October in Kyrgyzstan. It is loosely similar to NATO with its principle that an attack on one is an attack on all. Who are the members? So Russia, Belarus, Kazakhstan, Tajikistan, Kyrgyzstan, and Armenia. Russia, Belarus, right? Then here we have Azerbaijan and then Armenia. So Russia is allied with Armenia. Here we have Kazakhstan, we have Kyrgyzstan, and then we have Tajikistan. So these are the 6 members of CSTO. Also remember, Tajikistan is the only country in Central Asia which touches Afghanistan and China both. Except it, no other country of this belt does the same, right? So this was all about today's current affair. Any doubt or any suggestion?